We are one sleep away from Uconn versus Tennessee, 2024-25 edition. You're locked on.
You are Locked On Uconn, your daily podcast on the Uconn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Uconn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. We appreciate all your support, and we're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering the Uconn men's and women's basketball programs, the hoops capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you the coverage that you deserve. And to show that gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to Uconn games. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, we bring to the program Bella Tamano. Let's get her in here now. Bella Tamano, Hoops Capital of the World, and my co-host on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or Mondays and Wednesdays, pardon me, for Locked On Uconn. All right, Bella, this is a big rivalry game, although when I put out the morning show, which was all about the history of it, I got a couple of wild comments that were like, the rivalry's dead, and that was then and this is now, blah, 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 blah. It's still a big game. I don't think people realize the magnitude of what Tennessee UConn truly means. And today, this is more of a preview than it will be about waxing nostalgic for games from 1995. But I was shocked by that. And I don't know if you checked that out. I don't know if you looked at the YouTube channel at all. But does that surprise you at all?
I think a lot of people, when things start to die out, people are looking for the next thing to jump onto. So I think people are kind of maybe latching on to more of a UConn versus Notre Dame sort of a rivalry, or among some other teams. USC is kind of starting to be in that a little bit just because of Juju Watkins and things like that. But I think that it is surprising because, yes, things have definitely died down. Tennessee has kind of taken a little bit of a back seat to, the greatness that women's basketball has seen in the last couple of years. But again, once a rivalry, always a rivalry. And I think, the Dino versus Pat Summit games and things like that. I mean, that's just the sound of that gives me blood coursing through my veins, even though I wasn't really alive for the big chunk of it or even conscious to remember most of it. I still think that at the end of the day, UConn versus Tennessee tomorrow, there's going to be a ton of game previews of just all of the nostalgic games that they've played, all of the, incredible things they did during, that it was the bulk and peak of that rivalry.
Yeah. And plus, you're a Yankee fan, and you're, for the majority of my life, the Red Sox sucked, and the Red Sox Yankees was still a thing, and then obviously when I was 2004, I was, how old was I then? Jeez Christ, 23 years old, kind of things started to flip on their ear. And then, Boston is, winning championships, and the Yankees haven't won one since 2009. Or 2008. So it's one of those things, rivalries just don't die. They may take lulls, and they may have these ebbs and flows. It's rare, unless it's a football game. We're going to talk about top 3 rivalries of all time, and I got some good ones on my list that I'll bring up. Unless it's a college football game that happens every year, sometimes regardless of record, it doesn't matter. It's just a rivalry is a rivalry. And this game is going to have some interesting elements to it because Tennessee is, like it or not, they're in the middle of a resurgence. They play in a really tough conference in the SEC. So their ranking is not where probably it should be in terms of the level that Tennessee wants to be considered elite again. But they're a good team. They're a top 20 national team. Do you think if Tennessee was ranked in the top 10, it would feel bigger?
I do. And I also just feel like that the way the women's basketball has grown, like I said, they just kind of haven't been in that top tier category. You know what I'm talking about? When I rank kind of for the the top teams, I think of Iowa just because of Caitlin Clark. Again, they're unranked, but again, it's just because of Caitlin Clark. I think of LSU because of the Angel Reese, Caitlin
Sure.
Clark rivalry, and of course Kim Mulkey, and they're a top 10 ranked team. Of course, South Carolina, what Don Staley's done with that program, and then UConn, and then some teams are kind of coming out of the woodworks like USC and Juju Watkins. So again, I just think Tennessee, like you said, they don't get as much credit just because I think they just fell out of that like elite category. And again,
Yeah.
sometimes it happens. But to me, if you're a real sports fan, you will never forget certain rivalries. Like I can name, certain games, Patriots versus Giants, what obviously is a huge rivalry. And I remember back in, I think it was 2017, where the Pats played the Giants. And it was just a simple regular season game. Giants weren't really having an incredible season. Patriots were still kind of on their high horse, and everyone was talking about that game because of that rivalry, regardless of the stakes. I mean, it's rivalries, like you said, they never die.
Yeah. As a struggling Giants fan at the moment for the last 10 years, I feel like anything that can remind me of the 2 wins over the Patriots in in Super Bowl 42 and 46 makes me happy. And today's the anniversary of Super Bowl 46. Apologies for that, but
Yeah, tough one.
I digress. UConn is preparing for Tennessee's kind of unique style of play, and for the first time since 1974, Tennessee is without a tie to Pat Summitt. They initially hired Kelly Harper, who I referenced earlier in the first episode because I mixed her name up with Caldwell, their current coach, Kim Caldwell. That's what happens when you get old. So Bella, apologies to you. You're the young one in this group. Kelly was a former player for Pat, and they struggled. She was obviously let go, and then Kim has taken over. And honestly, the impact has been pretty immediate. They won their first 13 games this season, albeit against weaker non-conference, but they have 5 losses. They're all of which came by single digits. They fell to Oklahoma by 1, LSU by LSU by 2, Vanderbilt by 1, Texas by 4, and South Carolina by 7. So all 5 teams are currently ranked in the AP Top 25, while 3 of them are in the top 10. So I'll ask you another question on this, because we both have said this should be a quote unquote win for the Huskies. Are we overlooking Tennessee? I mean, think about those games. You lose by 1 to Oklahoma, 2 to LSU, 1 by Vanderbilt. Texas is ranked in the top 7 all year. You lose by essentially 2 possessions. And then South Carolina was a 3-possession game. Lose by 7. Are we overlooking Tennessee a little bit?
I definitely think that, on paper, they are a good team. And again, that rivalry aspect, even though some people don't necessarily think it is one anymore, is always going to linger, right? There's always some extra thing, there's always a little bit of an extra stakes on the line, looking into this game. I would say I think Tennessee is a very efficient team. I said this last episode. They score the second most points per game in college basketball. But I just feel like, I don't know, there's just this gut feeling that I have that this is going to be the game for UConn. Now, the only thing that does scare me a little bit is the fact that we might not be overlooking Tennessee, but we might be looking at Carolina too much,
Yeah.
South Carolina too much.
Could be a trap game.
Yeah, that's the only thing that scares me a little bit. And also, it is an away game. We talk about the away crowd. We saw USC go down to Iowa. And sometimes, especially in college basketball, fans are able to get in, these players are still young, right? Like, they're my age for the most part, a little bit older, a little bit younger. Like, fans can get in people's heads. A lot of media and things like that can get in people's heads. So again, I do think this will be a win for UConn. I'm going to double down on that. I feel like, yes, Tennessee has some, really strong points for their game, like their defense and, like
Sure.
they're pretty good at their good abilities to score. But I just think, like, I looked, and they score 30 points a game. They average 30 points a game off turnovers. UConn's just a clean team. I don't see them being able to capitalize that much and get that many points off UConn, and losing some points there. I just think UConn's going to be able to keep up with them and put them away.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I would caution you and say, this team, they press all game, they press all 40 minutes, they use a deep rotation of 10 players that each at least average 10 points per game. So they do like line shifts like they're a hockey team, and they just huck a ton of they just chuck and duck with 3-point shooter. And honestly, you're right that like with Paige and most likely Caitlin Chen and others who are more experienced, you got to know the personnel. Some are shooters, some are not. Um, but what scares me about this Tennessee team is if they get hot at home, if UConn does succumb a little, just even a little bit to that heavy pressure in that defense, there could be one of these games where they have a lull, and then Tennessee just kind of uses it as momentum.
Yeah.
I'll say one more thing, and then we'll get to the next segment. Um, People are going to hate me for this. I think UConn wins the game. But you know what would be great for college basketball? Is if Tennessee won. It would suck for UConn
Yeah.
in the short term.
Yeah.
But what would be awesome for women's college basketball is if Tennessee wins this game and it's like a signature win for Caldwell and their team plays phenomenal and kind of, gets them going a little bit. I'm never rooting for that, but I'm just in my brain thinking about it's the same thing. I had the same thought, and I don't think I said it on the pod, but I was talking to my dad about it with the UConn men. Georgetown's a lot better this year. Anytime Georgetown, St. John's, Seton Hall are good, the Big East is a lot better. Seton Hall's terrible this year, but Georgetown and St. John's are great St. John's is awesome. Georgetown's getting better. I was like, if UConn was a really good team this year, not like struggling right now, 16-6, kind of like the position that the women are in, where they're going to get like a 2 seed anyway.
Yeah.
I would have no issue with like a Georgetown beating them as like a signature win, just because it's when you're in the Big East, you need some like signature wins for the conference. And so with the Tennessee rivalry stuff, it wouldn't crush UConn if they lost to Tennessee in this regular season. Because what would be the funniest thing ever would be is if they lost a close game to Tennessee and then they go smack South Carolina and Columbia. So we'll see what happens. I just had that thought and I wanted to get it out there.
Gotta think of the good of the group. I respect it.
Yeah, no. Listen, I want the game to thrive, and there's never been a better time in women's college basketball, in my opinion. Although the exposure is better now than when it was Gino versus Pat and all the vitriol that was back and forth with that group. So when we return, what UConn versus Tennessee still means, and craziest thing, Paige and AZ finally get to play a game in Tennessee for the first time ever. We're going to talk about that coming up after the break. Need last minute tickets? GameTime has you covered. Get flash deals, zone deals, and no hidden fees. And they have a new feature called GameTime Picks. It helps you. It's basically a curated opportunity for you to not have to search for a ton of stuff. So you just put in a little bit of information, and then GameTime curates the picks for you. Shows you the seat from right where you're going to be sitting at, the view from your seat. You get the best price. You get 110% money back guarantee if you find a better price. So there's literally there's nothing to lose. It's a no-brainer. Game Time has that lowest price guarantee, and you're getting the best deal every time. Download the Game Time app. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Don't miss out. Game Time is the fastest, easiest way to get in the game. Game Time. Check it out. All right, let's get Bella back in here. Bella Tomato, Hoops Capital of the World, and your host here, Mark Snetto, our co-host on Mondays and Wednesdays. Bella Tomato with us live in stores. I want to be able to say that because it's true. And all right. First off, before I even get into what UConn versus Tennessee still means, you're on campus.
Mm-hmm.
What if any is there ever any, like a feeling when it comes to this game? I know it's the rivalry's not the same, but I just feel like the campus has to be buzzing with not only the women but the men's win against Marquette over the weekend, and then on top of it, you got this game where they're traveling to, probably left already or close to it, to Tennessee to be playing in Knoxville. Is there any kind of like feeling on campus when they play a rivalry like against the Vols?
I think there's just that sense of like camaraderie and like everybody's just proud that they get to be a part of something like this. They get to, think about it. There's so much coverage on TV. And I think everyone thinks to themselves, like, these are my classmates. Like, these are my peers that are going
Yeah,
to play, and people, and Fox Sports and things like that. Like, plenty of commercials, plenty of things on social media, just people going back and forth and debating. I think it's more of like a, not sit back and relax, like, "Oh, like, I'm a part of that," but kind of like a embracing the fact that, I know you talked about it. Everybody from Connecticut loves, most for the most part, loves UConn sports, but there's something to be said about going here
yeah,
versus
just being a
just
fan.
being a fan. Yeah. And like even last year, I didn't go to UConn. I went to a different school. And, I attended a game, but being in the student section and being able to, say, I go here and these are the people that I get to watch play. And these are the people that are, like I said, in my class. I think it's awesome. Like I think everybody just feels the same thing. We embrace the fact that like we love UConn sports. And the funny part is too, like everybody has UConn gear on all the time. Like it's, you know, you wear it like constantly. Like everybody has something, a sweatshirt, sweatpants, everything, hats, shirts. Like, I mean, you love to wear it. You wake up and you're like, why not? You know what I'm saying? Like it's just
Right.
it's great to sport it. And I love it. It's such a great feeling. And it truly, truly is awesome to be able to say, hey, like these like I go to UConn.
Those are,
Like that's a
those are
great
your
statement.
peers.
So yeah.
No, it's awesome. I will say that I whenever I talk to someone that is an alumni or someone that's been, you can definitely feel the passion is different, because it's just there's something to be said for, maybe you, like, whether you're an older person or you're my age or even older than me or younger than me, like the people that you were around when you were in like your formidable years in college, like those are the people you remember forever. And some people have kept in touch with those same people that are like famous, and just because you had like a class with them or you just kind of had, you ran into them and you ran
Yeah.
in the same circles. So yeah, I think that it definitely means more. I would never kind of give anyone, any gruff about that. I do push back on some fans who are like, yeah, you just wouldn't understand if you didn't go here. It's like, all right, well, take it easy because we're all from the
Yeah.
same state.
No, yeah.
And I also got admitted to UConn, and I didn't go because I'm an idiot. But that's okay.
That's okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's a story for another day. Paige, her mindset heading into this game, I think she's got like an us versus the world mentality, which is fantastic, especially on the road.
Mhm.
Uh, I think she loves playing in an environment where everyone wants you to lose. I think that was a
Mhm.
quote that I found. Do you think certain players, and if you agree with this, outside of Paige, who else do you think has this mindset that thrive more in hostile environments? And how does that impact performance? Like, do you think there are other players outside of Paige that can embrace that in this game in Knoxville?
I would say, I mean, besides players, I mean, I think Gino loves to prove everybody
Yeah,
wrong, absolutely, without a doubt.
for sure.
Um, I think the one wild card could be Sarah Strong because we talk about her being so nonchalant. Yes, she's young, so sometimes it's tough to play in those type of environments, that she's really never been exposed to, besides the Notre Dame game, obviously on the road. But I do feel like because she's just kind of like, go with the flow type of player, I think she could thrive in this environment, right? Like she doesn't care if people don't like her. And honestly, I don't even think she cares if people really like her at all. Like she doesn't care if they don't
Yeah,
like her, she doesn't care if they like her. I think she just wants to play basketball. She thinks it's fun, she's good at it, and she does that. Other than that, I think that I wanna say Aubrey Griffin. I think she's another player that's just like, "I'm gonna go out there and play. I'm athletic, and I'm gonna prove people wrong." And I think especially coming off injury, this is a great opportunity for her to do so. The other girls, I think, like, I don't know. I don't really see them being on either sides of the spectrum. I think they're more so just, like, clean cut basketball players. Let's go out there, let's play, and, depending on the night, they could get affected. The person that does scare me a little, not to say that she doesn't have, competitive and a super competitive mentality. I think AZ. I just think she's been through a lot in her career, and that's taken a significant toll on her. So I think stuff like that, I feel like gets to her a little bit more than
sure.
some other players. But again, that doesn't say that I don't think she's going to go out there and have a great performance, a double-digit performance,
She
even a
could.
20-point performance. But I do think this could be a game where I do see some struggles from her just based off of, environment and crowd.
Yeah, and I'll add something to that because I don't disagree with you on the list. I mean, Sarah just got went out to Omaha and had 26 points and 12 rebounds on the
Right.
road. I don't think the Tennessee crowd is going to bother her at all. The press might, but maybe the crowd plus the press will hurt. But I think they break the press, not no problem, but methodically and over time. To touch on AZ, I think sometimes because she's been through so much, it's not even so much that she's like less competitive. It's that I think there's more worry. And this is so just me just talking. So if
Mhm.
if if she heard this and she was like, "That dude is full of," you know what? I get it. But like I've had injuries. I've had questions about my health where you're like, "Is this all worth it?" You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
like I think sometimes it's just human nature. Like it's not even talking about like, hey man, just pull yourself off from your bootstraps and like just and tough it out, like all that stuff. When you feel like you could potentially move your knee in one direction and it pops again, that
Mhm.
always kind of is in the back of your mind. And
Absolutely.
I think when things get more stressful, that's when you can either go one of two ways. You can look at it from that perspective and have the woe is me attitude, or the this could happen, or you just kind of put it to the side and you can't control the things you can't control, right?
Mhm.
So I would tend to think that AZ is more on the kind of live and let be right now and just kind of like
Mhm.
let it go. But I think there's probably a little bit that creeps in every once in a little bit of doubt every once in a while. So that's a good call from you, I believe. Last question on this topic, really. Paige and AZ are playing for the first time ever together in Tennessee. I think that adds a little something to this rivalry. I believe that. And if you had to, because we're going to get into the top three rivalries of all time in every sport. So if you had to kind of weight or stack rank, give me your like one rivalry right now in women's college basketball that is like that trumps every other.
I think right now I would have to say UConn versus Notre Dame. I think that is kind of one of the big rivalries. Obviously, last year you kind of have that um, Caitlin Clark versus Angel
Yeah,
Reese, and you have the LSU versus Iowa. The reason I say Notre Dame versus UConn is because I feel like that rivalry has withstood the test of time, right? We said that the Tennessee one has fizzled out. I think UConn versus Notre Dame has always been there.
sure. Through
Arike
different
Ogunbowale,
conferences.
right? Arike Ogunbowale, a couple years ago,
Boo.
turnaround three in the corner.
Yeah.
That one broke a lot of hearts, including mine. And then just
Yep.
even just back in the day, I went to a Notre Dame UConn game at Gamble, and UConn lost. I think it was I forget exactly. Again, I was maybe 6 years old. Um, and it was still everybody. You could just feel the energy in the building. Um, and I just think that UConn Notre Dame rivalry, I'll never get over because personally, UConn basketball all the way. But when it comes to football, I'm a Notre Dame football fan. So I do have
Boo.
I do have a little bit of a special spot in my heart for Notre Dame. But when it comes to women's basketball, I think it's more I just respect their competitive aspects and their ability to have been pretty solid for so long.
Yeah, and also before I even comment on anything, I don't want you to get killed in the comments. For anyone that knows anything about the area that we grew up in, Notre Dame is a huge part of football in the state of Connecticut, and I would be lying if I said I didn't root for them a little bit when I was growing up too, because it was all that was on
Yeah,
NBC, and this is pre. I know you're a little old, you're a little younger, so you don't have that same excuse. But I'm sure your dad, who probably
yeah,
is around my age,
that's true.
has had that exact same thing where he grew up and UConn football was not very good, and but Notre Dame was like an institution. I don't know if you're Catholic. I am, so that's part of it too, right? So
Yeah,
don't kill Bella. There's a reason why she is a
yeah,
basketball UConn fan and a football Notre Dame fan. And
yeah.
it's easily discussed
And
or
let's be
explained.
honest, yeah, and let's be honest, you can't, look me in the face and say anyone on here that you haven't watched Rudy and been a little touched by it or a little moved by that movie. Come on, like I feel like
Yeah,
everybody's
or
right.
you could be the opposite. Like, have you ever seen those bumper stickers that say Rudy's offsides?
Hey, listen, I, I'll respect it either way. I'll respect it either way. I think the movie itself is a
It's definitely
little
over the
thrown
top.
together. But yeah, I mean, you're 8 years old watching Rudy for the first time. Like, what are you supposed to believe? You everybody wanted that like little Letterman jacket. Come on, like
It's true.
yeah,
It's totally true. I will end this segment by saying this. I think this rivalry still matters. I would say right now, if you were going to say which is the most heated rivalry right now, it's LSU South Carolina. They get into like fights. Kim Mulkey and Don Staley don't like each other. That's as close as we're getting to Gino and Pat right now.
it's fair.
And because like Neil Ivy, Notre Dame, real classy lady, her and Gino feel like they have a good relationship. It's intense, but no, Hannah Hidalgo and Ashlyn Shane aren't throwing elbows at each other. Okay,
Fair.
so that would be my only disagreement on that. And we better be ready for that South Carolina game and not overlook this Tennessee team. That's all I'm going to say. When we return, we're going to have a little fun and talk about the top 3 rivalries in all of sports, in our opinion. Talking about that coming up. All right, quick little fun segment here with Bella. We're going to talk about our top 3 rivalries of all time. I'll let you go first. What is your because I have a feeling ours are going to be different because we're different generations, but we may have some crossover. You go first.
You want me to list all top 3 straight away right here?
Just whatever they are.
In no particular order. I have Yankees and Red Sox has to be in there. I mean, the curse of the Bambino. It runs deep. You go to a Yankees Red Sox game, you watch it on TV. It doesn't matter. That always is going to draw a ton of viewership, whether it's kind of more a regular season game or a postseason game. Now, number 2, I think I'm gonna have to go with, and it's a tough one, but I think again, you have to spare me a little bit, like you said, because of my age.
Yeah,
Patriots versus Giants. I mean, it
love it.
happens within a 5-year span. The Giants knock off basically, in my opinion, the greatest dynasty in football. And I don't care. You're gonna say that I might want to bring the Chiefs into that category, or
Now,
the Packers
yep,
way back
yep,
then, or the Cowboys, or Joe Montana and the 49ers. But I mean, the Patriots undefeated season. Like,
yeah.
my Christmas card that year was I hope you have I think it was like a perfect holiday season, because they were perfect at that point. Perfect
Bella,
season.
do you know that I had a shirt, and I probably if I find the picture, I will send it to you. It says 18 wins in 1 giant loss.
It's brutal. I mean, that's the thing. And the crazy part about that is both of those games were, not necessarily decided by one play, but David
Let's do it.
Tyree, Mario Manningham, like those are
Yeah,
iconic moments in, like I said, about 5 years, they Giants just find a way to beat the Patriots. And then still, again, to this day, even in preseason games, I'm if it, usually the Patriots will play like the Eagles, and now with there's 3 games, they'll play the Giants, I think, every other year. But I'm still gonna root for the Patriots in the preseason games, even though I don't care about them, because it's the Giants. Like, you just want them to
sure.
lose. And then the last one, I'm gonna kind of make it a little trifecta here, just because I got the Pats jersey, the Yankees jersey. I think Celtics Lakers. I think so. Like,
Okay.
that one was a little before my time, but I think you take 2 of the most iconic cities, LA and Boston, and you think of just the incredible names that have come out of there, and just them going back and forth back in the day in the what was it, 60s, 70s kind
Yeah,
of. And
80s.
yeah, Bird versus Magic, right? You
Sure.
got a ton of even better names that I'm sure somebody like you could name. My dad, but
Russell,
Bill Russell, yeah,
Bill
Kareem,
Russell and Jerry West, the logo of the NBA,
yeah,
constantly losing to the Celtics. Yeah,
yeah.
I can
I
see
just
that.
think, yeah,
That's a good one. My dad would approve too.
yeah. So that's my top three. What do you got, Mark?
All right, so we're the same on Yankees Red Sox. We don't have to beleaguer that point. I think no matter whether it's lost some of its luster over the years because the teams don't like hate each other anymore.
Right.
So it's a little, but that's kind of like sports altogether today. Unless LSU and South Carolina start fighting each other again. And then I have to say, from a basketball perspective, from like a college basketball perspective, I was always a big UConn Syracuse fan. I love that rivalry in the old Big East. I know it doesn't happen anymore. Or UConn Georgetown, you could go that route. So I kind of did a little kind of cheated on the assignment there a little bit. And then Duke Carolina's up there, even though obviously you wouldn't have that, this year with how bad Carolina's been.
Yeah.
And then I was going to add a couple of these. These are underrated. So like I think my top three rivalries of all time are Yankees, Red Sox, UConn, Syracuse, and then Duke Carolina. I mean, listen, you could go Packers, Bears, you could go, Cowboys, Steelers. Like there's a bunch of rivalries forever, right? But very underrated. The Iron Bowl, Auburn, Alabama, pretty much always delivers. And then underrated from also Georgia, Florida. They do that biggest cocktail party ever in Jacksonville, so it's kind of on the Florida Georgia line there. Terrible band, really really cool area there, Florida Georgia line. Yeah. Underrated rivalry in basketball, Cincinnati versus Xavier. Okay. And because it's the crosstown shootout, they do it every year. They're not, no matter if they're in the same conference or not, and they typically are not. And it's just hatred. They just hate each other. And it's inner city versus suburbs. There's kind of like an element of Cincinnati being kind of like the rough and tumble, and the Xavier being like the private school. And I don't know, man. Like it kind of reminds me of like UConn, Georgetown, where like UConn's a public school and Georgetown's like hoity-toity, and it's where all the fancy people go, and Xavier's kind of the fancier ones. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's always great rivalries. I'm not a soccer guy, but like I looked up like Real Madrid versus Barcelona,
sure,
stuff like that. But I think those three initial are my favorites, and then there's some underrated ones. Have you ever been to like an intense rivalry game, like in terms of either Celtics, Lakers, Red Sox, Yankees in your time?
I've been to a Yankees Red Sox games. I've been to 2 of them at Fenway Park, and I think that's the thing. You say there's no hatred, but Boston and New York
fans are.
That's the thing. The Boston and New York fans go at each other. I've actually never been to a hockey game or like a professional hockey game or a professional basketball game, NBA game. I've been to. I can't say honestly that I've been to an incredible rivalry game. I've been to a couple like cool games. Like I went to the Patriots AFC Championship versus the Colts, and I know that's not a crazy rivalry, but like when Manning was there, it was more of a rivalry.
Sure. Yeah.
So that was kind of fun, but again, it wasn't a crazy
Colts,
game.
Pats, yeah.
Yeah, Pats kind of blew them out. But to go back to your points, I think I love the Auburn Alabama call out. The Auburn's gonna win the football game. Like can't beat the Chris Davis the return on that one. And then the other one that I wanted to note is Catholics versus convicts, Notre Dame versus Miami.
Yeah. That's a good one.
If you haven't seen the 30 for 30 on that one,
it's good.
Great.
Very good.
Great. But I think you talk about public versus private school. That's just like, that was a crazy time period. From what I've seen. Sorry about that. My alarm went off. From what I've seen, but yeah, I just think you can't beat a good rivalry, even if things have kind of simmered down. When you see that team pop up on your schedule, you mark your calendar.
For sure. And then Rocky versus Apollo. That's from the Rocky movies. You gotta go there too. All right, this has been fun. This has been a good episode. I think Tennessee. I'm gonna say that UConn will win this game, but I think it's gonna be under double digits. I think they're gonna win by like 9 or 10 points tops. I think it's gonna be a tough one in a tough environment. I think it's gonna prepare them for the game against South Carolina. I just hope that Gino has them ready to rock, because this team is going to be chomping at the bit to make a statement, and I hope UConn is ready to snuff that out. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, just got to be careful. No foul trouble. No foul trouble. That's what we got to hope
for. Because they're deep. They'll run you to death. 100%. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. Not confirmed yet, but I think we're going to have Maria Conlon on tomorrow to talk about this rivalry and get a deeper dive into her time at UConn playing against these Lady Vols. We'll see you tomorrow. This has been another episode of Locked on UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, and that's Bella Tamano, as always, on Mondays and Wednesdays. This has been another episode asking you to stay locked on, stay connected, and to remember it's not just about getting it done, it's about doing it in a way that it can't be done any better. That's our goal every day, and go Huskies.